The detonation of a nuclear weapon would be instantaneous and irreversible and could kill hundreds of millions, even billions of people in a nuclear war.
As a country and globally, we've lost track of this as a threat. We would have cataclysmic change that will exacerbate a lot of the underlying injustice issues as well.
These aren't symbols of national power. These are ingenious, carefully designed machines that are most effective at killing civilians on a massive scale. And the more of these weapons there are in the world, the more likely they'll be used, and we have to eliminate them.
There's a vision and a degree of flexibility and inclusion within the nuclear community to try to bring in new thinking, and that's even just to connect across the community. I think that's a big part of what N-Square's been able to do, and bringing it to RISD as a space to try to broker some of those bridge-making conversations.
We can't approach the problems how we've approached them traditionally in the past, and we need to look at these problems from as interdisciplinary of a focus as we can.
We need to step back from our own field and listen to people on the outside, not only in terms of how they can help, but also to change our thinking about the way to approach this challenge.
How do you take this incredibly talented, hardworking, diverse group of experts who are looking at the policy side, the science, geopolitical research, the game theoretic strategy? How do you galvanize and gather that energy and find the common ground, find the opportunity?
The key to that is being generous with our expertise and also being willing to ask those questions and learn from peers in the cohort. That's something that I'm super excited about.
And these people have all committed to working together for a year, looking for one discrete problem set that they can actually make headway in. Otherwise, you just sit back and you're like, oh, it's so big and we can't do anything about it. But the reality is you have to start somewhere. It's like a big ball of knotted string. You'll get there, you just have to begin. There are communication challenges of actually taking technology that we have in the private sector and adapting it in a way that makes sense for monitoring and safeguards. There are challenges around getting people to care because it is such a big issue and it just sort of shuts people down. How do you give people agency? How do you combat fake news and disinformation around weapons of mass destruction?
Coming out of the Cold War, I think everyone felt that with improved relations with the Russians, a completely different geopolitical landscape, that nuclear weapons were a thing of the past.
So what happened after that? The frame went from nuclear weapons are dangerous, all of it, the Soviets, ours, the nuclear war that we might fight, to proliferation. The real challenge, the threat is that these other people will get nuclear weapons, these bad guys over there in another country. The whole sense of who's responsible has shifted from individuals to governments. And that has been a process that's been tremendously disempowering.
As a nuclear engineer, I'm curious how historically informed the policies are. Has this conversation been had before, and is that decision still relevant today?
This is a topic that's hard for many people to relate to, but that's what artists and designers are good at. We're good at telling stories and being able to influence in ways that it's not the focus of the nuclear community.
And when you pair those kinds of problem-solving experts, which is what I think of designers as, with nuclear experts and then an artist, you get these new solutions that would have never emerged otherwise.
The piece that has been very new for me and that I'm incredibly excited about is the work with RISD. And what I admire so much is the thought process, the design process.
RISD is very interested in how you interrogate yourself, the principles that you're relying on, deeply enough to actually see something in a truly new way because it is your idiosyncratic way. Staying out of your cognitive preconceptions of things helps you avoid merely repeating the conceptions that you've inherited.
From our perspective as designers, it's easier for us to see a more simplified, bigger picture because we aren't bogged down in the details. And that's been really helpful to make connections between disparate parts because it tackles a lot of strategic design and systems thinking.
There's a very strong culture here of being comfortable with failure, being comfortable with mess. celebrating the growth of the people around you, even in their mess. There's a deep commitment to being true in that way, to your own process or voice or background, your personal experience, biasing towards action, biasing towards experimentation, being accountable to other people and putting your work in front of them and getting feedback and moving as quickly as possible, while also not teleologically rushing towards a predefined goal.
It's almost too easy sometimes to get caught up in ideation in grad schools, presenting to other designers about ideas that you talk about only in studio. Whereas when you're working with people who are completely outside of the world of design, it really helps because you're thinking of solutions that need to be implemented right away.
I'm hoping that there will soon be a whole array of studios, courses, students, grad students, faculty members who are finding ways to take the things that they're already doing and begin to apply them to some of these big challenges. For RISD to have a long-term inquiry, almost a hub or a catalyst for people to take on big challenges, whether it's nuclear, whether it's climate change, whether it's feeding our growing population. I would love to demonstrate to the world that we can take on these issues in ways that others might not approach them.
What is reduced complexity?
When they started approaching those problems with an understanding of design, it was amazing, the stuff that they came up with.
There's the beginnings of a new anti-nuclear movement. The international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017. There's a new generation of activists who are very sophisticated, very bright.
There is definitely cross-education and a mutual exploration of what this kind of partnership could mean. There's an opportunity, if we can work this one out, it can serve as a model for other communities.
This is a man-made problem. We can unmake it.